The great hall stretched endlessly in all directions, its walls made of some crystal that seemed to pulse with inner light. Ambassador Kim Dae-ho had never seen anything so beautiful or so terrifying. His black suit felt heavy and wrong in this place where beings of light and shadow moved like living dreams. He walked forward slowly, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind him, his small team of humans looked tiny and fragile. Dr. Park Minji clutched her translation device with white knuckles. Colonel Lee Sang-woo kept his eyes moving, cataloging every exit and potential threat. He had traveled further from Earth than any human before them. And now they stood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy, the Galactic Council. General Thaxmer of the Vorthok Empire rose from his throne-like chair. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with 6 arms that ended in claws sharp enough to cut steel. His skin was the color of old blood, and when he smiled, rows of teeth, like broken glass, gleamed in the strange light, Thaxmer said. His voice like grinding stone. The little mammals from the dirt world have finally learned to leave their nest. Laughter filled the hall. Not human laughter, but sounds that made Kim's bones ache. The Zealoth Collective speaker, a being that looked like metal and flesh grown together, made a noise like steam escaping from a broken pipe. The ancient Keth Mori representative, barely visible as a shifting shadow, produced harmonics that felt like ice in Kim's veins. Kim forced himself to stand straighter. Honored Council, we come seeking membership in the galactic community. We wish to trade with your worlds, to learn from your knowledge, and to contribute what we can to galactic peace. The laughter grew louder. A being that looked like a walking tree covered in eyes spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. Contribute? What could dirt crawlers possibly contribute to civilizations that have traveled the stars for millions of years? Park Minji stepped forward, her translator working frantically to keep up with the alien languages. We have solved problems of disease, hunger, and war on our world. We have art, music, literature. We have survived ice ages and natural disasters. We have imagination and determination. Imagination, repeated the Zealth speaker, its mechanical voice dripping with scorn. How amusing. Do you know what we call species like yours? We call them mayflies. You live such brief lives, think such small thoughts. You've existed for what, a few 100,000 years? We were building starships when your son was young? Kim felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice steady. We know we are young. That's why we want to learn. We're not asking for much. It's just the right to trade, to visit other worlds, to be part of something greater than ourselves. General Thaxmer, S6 Arms, gestured dismissively. You want to be part of something greater? Very well. I propose we classify your little world as a protected primitive zone. We will prevent you from leaving your system until you have evolved enough to be worth our time. Perhaps in 1,000,000 years, your descendants might be ready to serve as laborers on our mining worlds. The Keth Mori's shadow form pulsed with what might have been amusement, a generous offer, though I suspect their star will burn out before they develop beyond their current level. Look at them. They still fight wars over which imaginary god to worship. They poison their own water and air. They are no different from any other pre-space flight species we have encountered. Kim's hands clenched into fists. We have stopped fighting wars. We have cleaned our air and water. We have learned to work together. It's how we built our first starships, how we learned to travel between stars. We are not the same species. We were 100 years ago. Prove it, said a new voice. This came from a being that seemed to be made of living light, its form constantly shifting and changing. Demonstrate why you deserve to walk among the stars. Kim's team exchanged glances. They had prepared for this moment, but not for this challenge. What could they show these ancient beings that would impress them? What did humans have that aliens who had conquered space millions of years ago would find valuable? Colonel Lee stepped forward. Our ability to adapt, our willingness to learn, a refusal to give up, even when everything seems hopeless. The laughter that followed was the cruelest yet. Adapt? Learn? Every species says the same thing. You are not special, little mammals. You are not unique. You are simply the latest in a long line of species that believe they are destined for greatness. The zealot speaker's mechanical voice cut through the laughter. Motion to establish quarantine. Protocols around Sol 3, all in favor. Every being in the hall raised appendages, tentacles, or energy fields in agreement. Not one voice spoke for humanity. The motion passes, Thaxmer announced. Your system is now under quarantine. You are forbidden from traveling beyond your own star. When you have evolved enough to be worth our attention, we will reconsider. Kim felt the weight of failure crushing down on him. They had traveled so far, hoped for so much, and now they were being sent home like children who had wandered into an adult conversation as the human delegation was escorted from the hall. Kim caught sight of Park Minji's face. Instead of defeat, he saw something else there, something that looked almost like a smile. "Remember everything," she whispered. "Every word, every insult, every species that voted against us." Kim nodded slowly. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. 50 years had passed since the day. Humanity was laughed out of the Galactic Council. Dr. Yoon Ha-jin floated in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching through the reinforced glass as massive ships emerged from the hidden construction bays carved deep into the moon's dark side. The vessels moved with deadly grace, their hulls black as space itself, covered in technology that would have seemed like magic to the humans who had first reached for the stars. "How many are ready?" she asked Captain Nam In-ho, who stood beside her reviewing data on his tablet. 47 of the new class destroyers, 12 heavy cruisers, and 3 of the big ones, Nam replied, his voice carrying quiet pride. "The gravitational drives are working better than we hoped. We can move twice as fast as anything the Vorthok have, and they'll never see us coming." Ha-jin smiled grimly. The aliens had made one crucial mistake when they dismissed humanity. They had assumed humans would simply accept their place and stay quietly in their corner of the galaxy. Instead, humanity had done what it did best: adapted, learned, and improved. The quarantine had actually helped them. While the great powers of the galaxy fought their endless wars and argued over ancient territories, humanity had been studying every piece of alien technology they could buy. Steal or salvage had been taken apart, understood, and rebuilt better than the original. The Vorthok prized brute force, so humans learned to be surgical and precise. The Zealoth valued cold efficiency, so humans learned to be creative and unpredictable. The Kethmori trusted in their ancient knowledge, so humans learned to innovate and break old rules. "Show me the Jupiter facility," Ha-jin said. Nam touched his tablet, and the wall screen shifted to show the massive orbital platforms hidden in the gas giant's swirling storms. Hundreds of ships moved between them like schools of metal fish, some so large they could carry entire cities. "The crews are ready," Nam continued. "We've been training them in zero-gravity, high-radiation environments, even inside stellar coronas. Our pilots can fight in conditions that would kill most alien species in seconds." Ha-jin nodded approvingly. Human biology had been seen as a weakness by the Council. Short lives, fragile bodies, limited senses. But humans had turned those weaknesses into strengths. Their short lives made them urgent and focused. Their fragile bodies made them careful and clever. Their limited senses made them build better tools. "Any word from the intelligence teams?" she asked. "Agent Choi Su-men sent her latest report this morning," Nam said, pulling up another file. "The Vorthok are planning something big. They've been moving fleets toward the outer rim, talking about cleansing operations against primitive worlds. Earth is definitely on their list." "How long do we have?" 6 months, maybe less. Their advanced scouts are already mapping our system's defenses." Nam paused, then grinned. "Of course they have no idea what our real defenses look like." Ha-jin walked to another window that showed the construction of what looked like a simple communications array. In reality, it was a weapon capable of focusing the sun's energy into a beam that could cut through a planet. Hidden throughout the solar system were similar installations, asteroid mining stations that were actually weapon platforms, research stations that could launch devastating attacks, even habitats that could transform into warships at a moment's Notice the beauty of it, she mused, is that we learn from every species that underestimated us. The Vorthok taught us about overwhelming firepower, so we built weapons that make theirs look like toys. The Zealoth showed us efficiency, so we created systems that do more with less energy than they thought possible. The Kethmori demonstrated the power of patience, so we spent 50 years preparing for this moment. Nam brought up another display, showing human settlements throughout the solar system. Mars now hosted 3 million people working in vast underground cities. The asteroid belt swarmed with mining operations that doubled as military bases. Even Venus had been tamed, its acid. Clouds converted into industrial complexes that produced materials stronger than anything in galactic commerce. The food production numbers are incredible, Nam noted. We're not just feeding our population. We're stockpiling enough supplies to survive a siege lasting decades. The medical facilities could handle casualties from a war involving millions. Of ships, we've planned for everything. Everything except failure, Hedgen said quietly, because we can't afford to fail. Not after what we've seen the galaxy do to species it considers weak. She thought about the reports that had filtered through the quarantine over the decades. Entire civilizations wiped out because they couldn't defend themselves. Peaceful trading worlds burned to ash because they had resources others wanted. The galaxy was not a kind place for the weak, and humanity had learned that lesson well. Nam said, checking his tablet again. We're receiving confirmation from all stations. Mars base reports full readiness. The Jupiter platforms are operational. The solar collectors are exceeding all projections. We even have the backup facilities in the Kuiper Belt standing by. Hedgen nodded slowly. Humanity had spent 50 years transforming from a single world species into something the galaxy had never seen before. They had taken the dismissal, the laughter, the insults, and used them as fuel for the greatest preparation in human history. Then it's time, she said. Send the message to all commands. When the Vorthok come, they're going to learn what 50 years of human determination looks like. Outside the window, the dark ships continued their silent dance among the stars, waiting for the moment when humanity would finally show the galaxy what they had become. Admiral Hong Jae-wook stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the approaching enemy fleet through the main view screen. 500 Vorthok warships moved through space like a swarm of deadly insects.
Ow.
Their red hulls gleaming with the promise of destruction. Each ship was larger than anything humanity had ever built before the quarantine, and their weapons could turn entire planets into glowing glass. They're broadcasting on all channels, reported communications officer Kim Young-mi from her station. The same message over and over. Put it through, Hong ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life, and General Thaxmer's voice filled the room. It was the same arrogant tone from 50 years ago, the same casual cruelty that had dismissed humanity as worthless. Primitive mammals of the third planet, the alien general announced. You have violated galactic law by developing weapons beyond your assigned technology level. You will surrender all military assets and submit to immediate resource extraction. Your world's metals, water, and biological specimens will serve the greater good of the galaxy. You have 24 of your planet's rotations to comply or face total annihilation. Hong felt a cold smile touch his lips. Open a channel. Young-mi worked her controls. Channel open, sir, says Admiral Hong Jae-wook of the Terran Defense. Force, he said, his voice carrying clearly across space. You have 30 seconds to leave our system. The laughter that came back was exactly what he had expected. The same grinding mechanical sound that had echoed through the council chambers decades ago. The same dismissive amusement that had sent humanity home in shame. 30 seconds? Thaxmer's voice was filled with mock surprise. Little mammal, we have 500 ships. Each one carries enough firepower to crack your moon in half.
Ow.
Your entire species number is only a few billion. We have conquered civilizations 1,000 times your size. What could you possibly do in 30 seconds? Hong looked at his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Park So-young. Begin Protocol 7. Protocol 7 initiated, Park confirmed, her fingers dancing across her control panel. All stations responding. Ready on your command. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden fleet began to move. Ships that had waited motionless in asteroid fields for decades suddenly came alive, their engines igniting in perfect silence. Others rose from the swirling storms of Jupiter, their hulls gleaming with energy shields that bent light itself. Most dramatically, an entire squadron of human dreadnoughts uncloaked from within the sun's corona, their armor glowing white-hot, but undamaged by the stellar fire. "Impossible," came a new voice from the Vorthok fleet. "Nothing can survive inside a star's corona. Our sensors must be malfunctioning." Hong's smile widened. "Your sensors are working perfectly. We've had 50 years to learn some new tricks." Vorthok fleet began to spread out, their formation shifting from an arrogant parade to a defensive stance. But it was too late. Humanity had studied their tactics, their weaknesses, their every move for half a century. "Fire," Hong commanded. What happened next defied every rule of space warfare the galaxy had ever known. The human weapons didn't behave like energy beams or explosive missiles. Instead, they warped space itself, creating gravitational anomalies that twisted the Vorthok ships like metal toys in a giant's hands. Shields that had protected alien fleets for millennia simply collapsed as reality bent around them. "Impossible." Its voice had lost all its arrogance. "What are these weapons? How are you doing this?" "We learned from everyone who underestimated us," Hong replied calmly. "Your people taught us about brute force, so we built weapons that make force irrelevant. The Zealoth showed us efficiency, so we created systems that require almost no energy. The Kethmori demonstrated patience, so we waited 50 years for this moment. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships phased through, solid matter appearing inside enemy vessels before unleashing devastating attacks. They fired from impossible angles, their weapons striking through dimensions the Vorthok didn't even know existed. Some human ships seemed to split into multiple copies of themselves, attacking from several directions at once. "Request immediate reinforcement," Thaxmer screamed into his communicator. "The humans have technology beyond anything in our databases. They're not primitive, they're not even using recognizable physics. But there would be no reinforcements." The human fleet had cut off all escape routes, surrounding the Vorthok force with a precision that spoke of decades of planning. Every movement had been calculated, every response anticipated. Sir Park reported, her voice steady despite the chaos on the view screen. "Enemy fleet strength down to 40%, 30%, 20%. Hong watched as the last of the Vorthok ships tried desperately to retreat, their once proud hulls blackened and broken. The flagship Conquest, General Thaxmer's personal vessel, limped through space with half its engines dead. "This is not possible," Thaxmer whispered over the com. "We are the Vorthok Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have never been defeated." "You've never faced humans before," Hong replied, "and you made the mistake of giving us time to prepare." The final human attack came from the sun itself, a beam of focused stellar energy, controlled and directed by human technology, reached across the solar system and touched the Vorthok flagship. The great ship simply vanished, converted to energy in an instant. 17 minutes after the battle began, it was over. 500 Vorthok warships had been reduced to scattered debris in emergency pods. Not a single human vessel had been lost. "Open a channel to the galaxy," Hong ordered. "It's time they learned what we've become." The footage of the battle spread across space at light speed, carrying with it a message that would shake every civilization to its core. Humanity was no longer the weak, primitive species the galaxy remembered. They had become something new, something terrifying, something that could destroy the greatest military. Power in known space without breaking a sweat. The age of underestimating Earth was over. The Zealoth Collective's homeworld hummed with nervous energy as Director Essio Mina stepped from her transport ship. The massive beings that had once mocked humanity's crude technology now bowed their metallic heads as she passed, her hive mind. The speaker, a creature of living metal and flesh, approached with movements that seemed almost fearful. "Honored Director," the speaker said in carefully practiced Korean, "we welcome you to our world. We seek understanding of your people's remarkable achievements." Mina smiled politely, though inside she felt a deep satisfaction. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Seoul, and the news had traveled to every corner of the galaxy. The mighty Vorthok Empire, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, had been completely destroyed by a species the galaxy had dismissed as primitive. "We appreciate your hospitality," Mina replied in perfect Zelith harmonic language, causing several nearby beings to step back in surprise. "Though I must say, your attitude toward us has changed remarkably since our last meeting." The speaker's mechanical parts whirred nervously. "We have studied the battle recordings extensively. Your technology appears to violate several fundamental laws of physics. We cannot understand how you achieved such advancement in such a short time." Mina walked through the crystalline corridors of the collective's central processing facility, her human team following behind. Agent Lee Kunwu materialized beside her, his stealth technology still active. The watching Zelith jumped back in alarm. They hadn't detected him at all. "Perhaps," Mina said, "the problem is that you're thinking like Zelith instead of thinking like humans." She gestured to a wall display showing the battle footage. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, their weapons bending reality itself. "You see, impossible technology. We see the logical result of 50 years of dedicated learning." The collective speaker led them to a vast chamber where thousands of Zelith minds worked in perfect harmony, processing data at speeds that should have been beyond any biological computer. Yet Mina knew that human quantum computers hidden deep in Earth's oceans could outperform this entire facility. "Show us," the speaker pleaded. "We offer our complete technological database in exchange for understanding. How did you solve the gravitational manipulation problem? Our greatest minds have worked on it for millennia." Mina touched her tablet, and a holographic display appeared showing the inner workings of a human gravitational drive. The Zelith minds around the room fell silent, their collective intelligence focused entirely on the information. "You were thinking about it backwards," she explained simply. "You tried to push against gravity. We learned to convince gravity to push for us. The key isn't force, it's understanding." The revelation sent shockwaves through the collectives. Shared consciousness. Their entire approach to physics had been wrong for millions of years, and these young humans had figured it out in a few decades. But the medical advances, another Zelith managed to speak individually, breaking from the hive mind in its excitement. "You cured the quantum plague that has killed billions of our people. Our own physicians said it was impossible." Dr. Jang Myung stepped forward for Mina's team. "Your physicians were trying to fight the plague. You learned to talk to it. Instead, every disease, every virus, every bacteria, they're all just life forms trying to survive. Once we understood what they wanted, finding a solution became simple." She showed them recordings from the Vorthok refugee camps, where human medical teams had not only healed the survivors of the battle, but had regenerated their bioarmor, something their own science had declared impossible. Vorthok warriors who had lost limbs in the fighting now stood whole again, their gratitude toward humanity absolute. "The Kethmoriev sent delegations," Lee Kunwar reported, his voice seeming to come from empty air as his stealth field remained active. "They want to trade their time manipulation technology for our dimensional phase research." Mina nodded. The ancient shadow beings who had lived for millions of years were now desperate to learn from a species barely 100,000 years old. "Schedule the meeting, but remind them that we've already improved on their time technology." The truth was spreading throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity hadn't just defeated the Vorthok through superior firepower. They had solved problems that had plagued every major civilization for eons. The resource wars that had torn apart entire sectors. Human engineers had simply made scarcity obsolete by learning to convert energy directly into matter. Delays that limited galactic governments. Human scientists had created instantaneous quantum networks that connected every corner of space. "We don't understand," the Zelith speaker admitted, its voice carrying the confusion of 1,000,000,000,000 linked minds. "How did you advance so quickly? How did you solve in decades what we could not solve in millennia?" Mina turned to face the assembled collective, her expression serious. "Because you made the mistake of thinking you were already perfect. You assumed that because you were old, you were wise. You believed that because you had conquered space, you had conquered knowledge itself. She gestured to her team humans who had grown up knowing they were considered the weakest species in the galaxy. We never had that luxury. We knew we were behind, so we never stopped learning. We knew we were weak, so we became strong. We knew we were dismissed, so we prepared to prove everyone wrong. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of a million zealous minds processing this revelation. They had created their own enemy by underestimating humanity's greatest strength, the refusal to accept limitations. What happens now? Speaker asked quietly. Mindash smiled, but there was steel in her expression. Now you learn to live in a galaxy where humanity is no longer the weakest species. Now you discover what it means to need us more than we need you. Outside the facility, human ships waited in orbit, not as conquerors, but as the new power that every civilization would have to reckon with. 10 years after the Battle of Seoul, Ambassador Park Ji-ho stood in the same crystalline chamber where humanity had once been humiliated, but everything had changed. The great hall that had once held representatives from 1,000 worlds now housed barely 100 independent species. The rest had voluntarily joined the Terran Commonwealth, drawn by the prosperity and protection that only humanity could provide. The motion to establish Korean as the primary diplomatic language passes without objection, Park announced to the assembled beings. His voice carried the quiet authority of someone who spoke for the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Not a single representative raised an objection. How could they when their own children already spoke Korean fluently, when their universities taught human philosophy alongside their ancient traditions? When their greatest scientists worked in laboratories designed by human engineers? General Thaxmara's son, one of the few surviving members of the Vorthok royal family, approached the podium with careful steps. His bioarmor was new, regrown using human medical technology after the old empire's destruction. The proud warrior race that had once terrorized the galaxy now served as eager partners in humanity's research projects. Honored Ambassador, the young Vorthok said in perfect Korean, "My world wishes to contribute our remaining bioarmor research to the Terra Centauri Medical Initiative. We offer this freely as a gift to the Commonwealth." Park nodded graciously. "Your contribution is welcome and appreciated. The new healing centers on Vorthok Prime will be operational within the year." In the observer galleries, alien children sat beside their parents, tablets displaying Korean language lessons. Their textbooks told stories of human heroes, human discoveries, human solutions to problems their own species had struggled with. For millions of years, young ones learned these lessons eagerly, while their elders watched with expressions mixing gratitude and fear. Director Kang So-young approached from the Commonwealth Scientific Delegation. Her tablet showing the latest reports from across human space. "The wormhole network is ahead of schedule," she whispered to Park. "We'll have instantaneous travel between all member worlds within 6 months. The outer colonies are reporting successful terraforming operations on 12 new worlds." Park smiled. Humanity had accomplished something no empire in galactic history had managed. They had not conquered through fear or force, but through the simple demonstration that human solutions worked better than anything that galaxy had produced in its long history. "Any updates from the frontier?" Park asked. 5 more systems petitioned for Commonwealth membership this morning, Kong replied. "They're offering full integration in exchange for protection against the Void Hunters. The Eldorian survivors are also requesting human assistance with their refugee crisis. The Void Hunters had been the galaxy's greatest terror for centuries. Extragalactic invaders that consumed entire star systems. While other species had hidden behind fortifications or sacrificed whole worlds to slow the invasion, human strategists had studied the enemy and developed countermeasures. The latest reports showed human fleets not just stopping the Void Hunters, but actually pushing them back into the dark space between galaxies. A delegation of Zealoth approached, their metallic forms moving with the nervous energy of beings who had learned to fear obsolescence. Their hive mind speaker, now equipped with human-designed quantum processors, addressed Park with deep respect. "Commonwealth leader," the speaker said, "we have completed the integration of human mathematics into our collective consciousness. Our efficiency has increased by 400%. but we still cannot understand how your species achieves such innovation with individual minds." Park's expression remained patient. Understanding requires more than processing power. It requires the ability to think beyond the limitations of your own experience. The Keth Mori representative, a being of living shadow that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, drifted closer. "We have studied your species for the past decade," it said in harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "We observe that you continue to surpass even your own previous achievements. This should not be possible." "Why not?" Park asked simply. "Because in our experience, species that reach the peak of their development become stagnant. They lose the drive to improve. Yet humans seem to accelerate their advancement even as they achieve dominance." Park looked around the chamber, seeing the faces of beings who had once laughed at humanity's crude attempts at diplomacy. Now they hung on every word spoken by human representatives, desperate to understand the secret of human success. "Perhaps," Park said, "the difference is that we never believed we had reached our peak. Every achievement simply showed us how much more we could accomplish." The session continued with reports from across the Commonwealth. Human colonies were thriving on worlds once considered uninhabitable. Human technology was solving resource shortages that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. Human medicine was extending the lifespans of species that had accepted death as inevitable. As the council meeting concluded, Park walked to the great windows overlooking the capital city, and below, humans and aliens worked together in perfect harmony. But there was no question who led and who followed. Human names graced the greatest buildings. Human languages filled the air. Human children played in parks designed by human architects. The galaxy had learned to speak humanity's name in whispers, of respect and barely concealed terror. Not because humans were cruel conquerors, but because they had become something far more powerful. They had become indispensable. In the end, no one feared Earth anymore. They simply understood that existing without humanity's approval might be impossible. The species that had once dismissed humans as primitive mammals now competed desperately for the chance to serve the Commonwealth, to contribute to human projects, to earn the protection that only human technology could provide. The galaxy had a new order. And humanity stood at its center, not as tyrants, but as the inevitable future that every species would have to accept, or face extinction in the dark spaces between the stars.